I don't have a philosophical objection necessarily to a travel ban if that is the thing that is going to keep the American people safe.
Right.
The problem is that in all the discussions I've had thus far with experts in the field, experts in infectious disease, is that a travel ban is less effective than the measures that we are
rubbish. You're talking to the same clowns who you put in office. So Frieden, Mr. Soda Tax, that's who you're talking to. Fauci, they've been around for 30 years, and they have one knowledge base, that's on AIDS. This is not AIDS. There's not the HIV virus, but they're putting out the same rhetoric. So let's get down to brass tacks. Something you haven't heard yet. Ebola is an RNA virus. What does that mean to you? What's RNA? Do you know the difference between RNA and DNA? You don't have to. You know vaguely what it means. It's an RNA virus, which means that every time it copies itself, it makes one or two mutations. Now, some of these mutations are meaningless. They mean nothing. But some of them might be able to change the way the virus behaves inside the human body. Dr. C.J. Peters, one of the heroes featured in the Hot Zone, said this. Imagine every time you copy an essay, you change a word or two. Eventually, it's going to change the meaning of the essay. So what does that mean to you? What that means is no one is keeping track of the mutations that are happening across West Africa. So no one knows what the virus actually looks like today. Yet Obama keeps repeating the crap put out by this moron, Frieden. Did you hear what I just said? The director of the Galveston National Laboratory at the University of Texas, James Duck, said the problem is that no one is keeping track of the mutations happening across West Africa. So no one really knows what the virus has become. Here's another fact, and here's something you should know. A group of researchers looked at how Ebola changed over a short period of time in just one area of Sierra Leone early on in this outbreak before it started to spread as quickly as it is now spreading. And listen what they found. You haven't heard this yet on Fox News. Blondie hasn't produced this yet because she hasn't had Michael on. They found more than 300 genetic changes in the virus in this one country. 300 genetic changes in the virus. Another expert, Dr. Sabiti, associate prof at Harvard, said it's frightening to look at how much this virus mutated within just 3 weeks. So is it airborne? Well, they say no because Obama's listening to the great Fauci, Anthony Fauci, and the great Soda Man. The Soda Man, a man belongs on a seltzer truck. He couldn't even deliver a case of seltzer properly, and he's in charge of the CDC. No, Mr. Obama, you better start listening to others than your inner circle. You better get out of your bunker and take a deep breath and look around and ask some real virologists and real experts. Not the bunker circle down there in the bunker with you. Because they're lying to you. They're ignoramuses. They don't know what they're talking about. I do. I'm Michael Savage.
Join the Savage Nation. Call is Michael Savage.
If we institute a travel ban instead of the protocols that we put in place now, history shows that there is a likelihood of increased avoidance. People do not readily disclose their information.
Right, what you're hearing is rhetoric put into the president's head by the people who ran the AIDS years at various organizations, and they're trying to apply the same rules that apply to HIV transmission to Ebola transmission. Unfortunately for them, they're not comparable. They're not comparable. It's that simple. And they should know better. I don't think they do. These are experts in AIDS transmission. They were given great rewards for all the years that they did work in those areas, Fauci and Frieden. But in terms of Ebola, they're misadvising the president. And he really ought to listen to experts outside of this inner circle of AIDS experts because they're two different worlds here. Ebola travel bans have been enacted by nearly 30 countries, but not by Obama. And he's repeating the same story that we heard about AIDS, which is that if you crack down on people, they won't disclose. They'll go underground. They may engage in something called broken travel. They'll hide the fact they've been disease. We may get less information about who has heard the same exact rhetoric during the height of the AIDS epidemic. And I'm speaking now to people who listen to this program who may have HIV. You are at greater risk than the general population if you have a compromised immune system. And I'm quite surprised that you're letting this president get away with this simply because you think he's friendly to you. Ignorance is nobody's friend. I want to remind you of that. And a travel ban is necessary, and it's necessary yesterday, which is why 30 countries have enacted such a travel ban. But because he has not very bright doctors around him, down there in the bunker, he's getting the wrong information. Obama is not really getting the right information. He's giving the same rhetoric. I heard it during the AIDS years. It's not new to me. And I want to tell you something. And even CNN, who went out of their way to attack me with that stupid attack this week by that jerk, Jake Woodpecker, says Ebola in the air, a nightmare that could happen. And then they do a very good article on it, and they quote real experts, not those folks down in the bunker with the president. And they say it could happen. And the thing for you to know is that the Ebola virus mutates every time a person gets Ebola, a new one. Every new person who gets Ebola may get a mutated virus, because every time they get it, the virus gets another chance to mutate and develop new capabilities. So far, there's been 7,100 cases of Ebola with 3,300 deaths. And listen to this, that's a very high death rate. So it's more virulent and more deadly than original. So what does that tell you? It's also spreading at a faster rate than it was earlier in the outbreak. What is that telling you? That all is well because the president's giving you this gobbledygook? Dr. C.J. Peters, one of the heroes featured in the Hot Zone, said, imagine every time you copy an essay, you change a word or two. Eventually it's going to change the meaning of the essay, which means the virus changes. So what does that mean to you? Maybe nothing, or maybe something. But you should know that in 2012, Canadian researchers found that Ebola Zaire, which is involved in the current outbreak, was passed from pigs to monkeys in the air. It was airborne, from pigs to monkeys. Dr. James LeDuc, director of the Galveston National Lab at the University of Texas, said the problem is that no one is keeping track of the mutations happening across West Africa, so no one really knows what the virus looks like today. Here's one last point. A group of researchers looked at how Ebola changed over a short period of time in just one area of Sierra Leone early in the outbreak, before it was spreading as quickly as it is now. Guess what they found? They found that there were 300 genetic changes in the virus. Did you hear what I said? So even if it has not become airborne, the virus has overwhelmed efforts to stop it because it keeps changing. And this is something that you have to understand. It's why I yesterday was comedic when I said they don't know Ebola from Shinola. And I urged Obama to fire Frieden and put in some real experts in the field and put in a restriction on travel immediately. I've been saying it for weeks now. I'm glad to hear that others are saying it finally. But you don't take a new health commissioner for Bloomberg, who advised controversial policies on banning sodas, and suddenly now he's an expert on Ebola. No, you get rid of him and you put someone in like Osterholm or Sabetti or LeDuc or others who have real credentials in the field, and you stop relying on your inner circle of advisors, because it's no longer just going out to the press. It's now a disease that can affect all of us.